Welcome to this expansive exploration of the fundamental architecture of reality. I am your host, and I am sitting here today with our resident expert to really unpack some wild concepts.
Hey, yeah, I am really glad to be here for this one. We have a massive journey ahead of us today.
We really do. And, I want to jump straight in by asking you and the listener to consider a medical anomaly that totally defies, like, the rigid expectations of biology.
Oh, right, the stuff that makes absolutely no sense on paper.
Exactly. So imagine a patient is diagnosed with a completely terminal condition.
Yeah.
The physical deterioration is an absolute certainty. It is documented by every available metric.
The doctors are basically saying there is zero hope left.
Right, exactly, zero. But then this individual is given a wholly inert substance, like a mere fragment of compressed sugar.
Just a standard sugar pill.
Yeah, a sugar pill. But they are told with this absolute authority that it is a definitive cure. And then if you fast forward a brief span of time, the fatal condition just vanishes entirely.
It is wild how often we see that happen.
Right. The dense biological matter of their body inexplicably rewrites its own cellular structure. And it does this just to align with a pure, invisible conviction.
And we witness this phenomenon constantly, yet we treat it as just a curious anomaly.
Yeah, we totally brush it off.
We do, instead of seeing it as the ultimate skeleton key to understanding human existence. That medical anomaly totally shatters the illusion we are conditioned to accept from the dawn of our awareness.
Which illusion is that, exactly?
The illusion that the physical world is the ultimate unyielding authority. I mean, the individual taking that inert substance did not physically fight the disease.
Right, they were not doing reps at the gym or undergoing invasive procedures.
Exactly. They did not scrub at the symptoms. The change originated entirely in the visible theater of their mind. And the physical world, well, it had no choice but to follow.
Wow. Which brings us to a massive relatable friction we all experience, like we are taught a very mechanical equation for success.
The old work hard, get results paradigm.
Yes. You expend an immense magnitude of effort, and you expect an equal magnitude of results. You chase a profoundly desired outcome. Maybe it is a summit of personal achievement or a state of immense abundance.
So you wake up before the break of dawn.
Right. You push your biological limits. You do absolutely everything physically required. But then you face a reality that feels like wading through setting concrete.
Just a total slog.
Yeah. Every forward step requires colossal friction. The results just remain completely stagnant. And you have to wonder, why does the physical world so often refuse to yield to our physical labor?
Well, it is because applying physical force to alter a physical circumstance is, like, the least efficient method of creation in the cosmos.
The least efficient. That is a bold claim.
It really is, but it is true. It is the equivalent of trying to alter the current of an endless tide by just slapping the water with your bare hands.
Oh, wow. I love that imagery. Just violently splashing around.
Right, just splashing. The physical realm is heavy, it is slow, and it is bound by immense friction. So when we limit our power to the physical layer, we are utilizing a mere fraction of our actual capacity.
And we just end up exhausted.
Exhausted, burnt out, and totally disillusioned.
So, let me introduce an analogy here to frame the absurdity of our approach. Trying to change the physical world solely through physical action is like standing in front of a mirror, despising the reflection staring back at you.
And deciding to just attack the mirror.
Exactly. You decide the best solution is to aggressively wipe the glass with a heavy cloth. You scrub until your arms ache.
You expend a staggering magnitude of energy to change the image on the glass.
Right, entirely forgetting that to change the reflection, you only need to change the expression on your own face.
That mirror analogy perfectly encapsulates the trap of human perception.
Yeah.
I mean, we obsess over the glass because the glass is tangible.
It is what we can
Okay.
physically touch.
Yeah. Touch, measure, verify with our basic sensory nodes. But to stop scrubbing the glass and actually change the reflection, we must understand the fundamental hierarchy of existence.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Because we are entirely misguided in our assumption that reality is just a flat, singular plane of physical matter, right?
Totally misguided. But I want to clarify something about the word hierarchy.
Oh, yeah. What is the issue with that word?
Well, when we say hierarchy of existence, it conjures an image of a ladder,
Yeah.
like a vertical progression where you leave one rung behind to reach the next.
Right, like climbing floors in a building.
Exactly. And that implies a separation that doesn't actually align with this framework. It is not a stacked structure.
Yeah.
You do not ascend from one floor to another and leave the lower level behind.
Okay, so how should we visualize it then?
Existence operates across a vast spectrum of density. It consists primarily of three states: the physical layer, the mental layer, and the spiritual layer.
And they do not sit one atop the other.
No, they occupy the exact same coordinate in a continuous infinite present. They are overlaid, interacting simultaneously.
Wait, really? So we are existing in all three layers at this exact second?
Continuously, yes. So the physical layer is the absolute most dense. And because of this extreme density, it is incredibly stubborn.
Right. The physical world doesn't just bend because you ask it to nicely.
Exactly. It is governed by rigid, unyielding mechanics. If your biological form collides with a dense structural barrier, the pain radiating through your nervous system is an absolute imperative.
Yeah, if I stub my toe on a heavy desk, it is going to hurt.
Right. The physical matter of your form interacts with the physical matter of the barrier. The dense nature of this reality demands an immediate, tangible consequence. You cannot merely wish away the kinetic impact in that split second.
Okay, so the structural barrier is unforgiving, and our biological form is fragile. There is a rigid law of physics at play.
Precisely. But as we slide up that spectrum of density, away from the physical, the rules begin to warp.
Warp.
Actually, they do not just warp, they completely invert. Moving slightly up the spectrum, we find the mental layer.
And this layer behaves differently.
Totally differently. It is entirely fluid, wildly malleable, and completely unbound by the kinetic laws of the physical plane. It is the realm of pure thought, belief, and perception.
Okay, I am with you. And what is beyond that?
Beyond the mental layer is the spiritual layer.
Yeah.
This is an ethereal realm, the absolute least dense of all.
So it's just pure possibility.
Exactly. It is a space where a staggering magnitude of possibilities already exists simultaneously. Every potential outcome, every infinite variation of reality is permanently anchored there.
Okay. I need to push back a little bit here.
Sure, go for it.
If that is the case, if an ethereal layer holding infinite, majestic possibilities exists right here, overlaid on our physical reality, why are we constantly drowning in the stubbornness of daily struggle?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, because if I desire an existence of absolute abundance, and that reality already exists in the ethereal layer, why doesn't my physical environment just snap into place the instant I desire it?
That right there is the most common point of philosophical collapse for anyone exploring this architecture.
Because it is incredibly frustrating.
It is. But the answer is a mechanism we can call the density delay.
Density delay.
Yeah. See, in the fluid mental plane, thought is instantaneous. You can project your awareness to a distant celestial body in a fraction of a heartbeat.
Right, I can just picture myself on Mars right now. Boom, done.
Exactly. But physical matter is incredibly heavy. It is sluggish. It requires the passage of eras, in a metaphorical sense, to rearrange its dense particles to match a new mental blueprint.
So the physical world just takes time to catch up.
Yes. The physical plane suffers from a systemic, unavoidable lag.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here.
I welcome it.
Density delay sounds incredibly convenient.
Like an excuse.
Yeah. It sounds like a built-in escape clause for when this philosophy completely fails. If your reality remains stagnant despite your mental efforts, you just blame the delay.
I completely understand why you would say that.
So how does one differentiate between a legitimate density delay and simply being utterly delusional about a reality that is never going to actually manifest?
That is a brilliant question. The razor that separates delusion from actualized creation is the nature of the internal conviction.
What do you mean by that?
Well, delusion is frantic. It is rooted in a desperate need to escape the present physical condition, meaning it is still violently reacting to the mirror.
Oh, I see. So the individual is still scrubbing the glass. They're just using mental effort instead of physical effort now.
Exactly. They are trying to force the universe to change, using anxious mental energy.
And what does true creation look like then?
True creation, operating through the density delay, is characterized by profound internal equilibrium.
Equilibrium, like a sense of peace.
Yes. The individual knows the reflection is changing because they have changed their face, and they are perfectly content to let the mirror take its time to catch up.
Wow, okay. That distinction is totally vital. Delusion demands immediate external validation, but true conviction requires none.
That is it exactly. And this brings us right back to the medical anomaly we started with.
It's a sugar pill.
Yes. The pure convention and the mental layer force the dense biological layer to rewrite itself, proving the mind is the command center.
Because the directive always flows downward in density, right?
Always. The ethereal plane provides the infinite possibilities, the fluid mental plane selects the possibility, and then the dense physical plane eventually hardens into the shape of that selection.
So you cannot permanently alter a dense structure from within the dense structure.
Never. You must change the fluid directive commanding it.
Okay, so if the mental layer is the absolute commander of the physical environment, then we must harbor a catastrophic misunderstanding of what a mind actually is?
We really do. We operate under this bizarre assumption that our minds are isolated, biological vaults sealed inside our skulls.
Yeah, we believe our thoughts are entirely private, just isolated sparks flashing in the dark, totally disconnected from the rest of the cosmos.
Which is the fundamental illusion causing the lion's share of human suffering. The individual mind is not a solitary vessel adrift in an empty void.
So what is it?
You are not an isolated intelligence trapped in biological hardware. Your mind is an active, inextricably linked node within a boundless, omnipresent intelligence.
Like a unified field of consciousness, a universal mind.
Precisely. An infinite network of awareness. And this universal consciousness is self-creative and inherently abundant.
And we are plugged into that.
We are an active node within this unified field. That means your focused personal will literally directs the overarching cosmic will. Your internal code programs the universal mechanism.
Okay, let's really wrap our heads around the gravity of that.
It is massive.
The overarching cosmic will is just waiting for the directive of the individual node. But there's a terrifying catch to this mechanism, isn't there?
Yes, there is. The unified field operates on one entirely immutable law. It possesses absolutely no filtering mechanism for preference, morality, or self-preservation.
Wait, no filtering mechanism at all?
None. It operates on total, unwavering agreement. It only knows how to say yes.
So it is an algorithmic mirror completely devoid of judgment.
Exactly.
It does not look at an individual broadcasting an intense dread of failure and say, oh, this person is terrified, let me protect them from this outcome.
It absolutely does not do that. It does not filter out the nightmare. It just receives the energetic code of failure and reflects it backward with perfect obedience.
It just honors the fear.
It honors whatever you give it. If an individual harbors a staggering magnitude of doubt, the universal field simply agrees.
Yes, you have doubt. Here is more to doubt.
Exactly. It orchestrates circumstances, serendipities, and kinetic events to validate that exact apprehension.
So if you hold a persistent, churning thought that you are locked in an endless struggle,
That the world is an inherently hostile architecture designed to break you.
the boundless intelligence of the universe just nods in agreement and instantly begins constructing more barriers for you to collide with.
That is exactly how it works. We are actively programming this unblinking cosmic mirror to reflect our worst anxieties.
We look at a barren circumstance in our physical reality, we feel a massive wave of panic, and the mirror says, yes, panic is the directive. Let us generate more conditions to sustain the panic.
And this explains why wading through the physical world often feels like trudging through an endless swamp.
Because we are working against our own programming.
Right. A person might be taking fierce kinetic action toward a goal, working relentlessly, pushing their biological form to the brink, but their mental layer is broadcasting a continuous, desperate signal of lack and exhaustion.
And the universal mind honors the mental signal, not the physical labor.
Exactly. The labor is totally irrelevant if the internal code is corrupted by fear.
Wow, okay, so if the mirror flawlessly reflects the internal code, then the absolute first order of business is interrogating what we are actively coding.
Which leads to a critical junction of identity.
Right. Are we coding for a reality that stems from our own genuine nature, or are we running a viral script implanted by external forces?
That is the tragedy of the human condition right there.
Yeah.
You look at how many nodes of consciousness are pouring unimaginable energy into manifesting an imposed dream.
A dream someone else told them to want.
Yes. Choosing a reality to command into existence must be dictated by an inherent, undeniable joy.
So no shoulds.
No shoulds. If you attempt to harness the universal yes, to manifest a life that society or a patriarchal lineage or a cultural paradigm told you to want, you will initiate a catastrophic internal system failure.
And we call that system failure burnout.
We do.
I mean, I see this constantly. An individual determines their ultimate destiny is to reach the apex of a fiercely competitive corporate structure.
Because that is what looks like success on paper.
Right, so they sacrifice their vitality, their relationships, their internal peace, believing the friction is just the price of the prize. But the entire pursuit feels like swallowing glass.
because the internal frequency is completely misaligned with the external action. The mind is screaming exhaustion and misery, while the biological form is panting and sweating to perform ambition.
And the universal field is only listening to the true internal frequency.
Exactly. It simply provides a continuous loop of exhaustion and misery. The universe will not sustain a reality that contradicts your fundamental essence.
This means we cannot successfully manifest a reality that does not genuinely resonate with our core frequency.
Which is actually a beautiful safeguard.
It is a massive relief, honestly. It means failure in an imposed dream is just the universe rejecting a bad code.
Exactly right.
But, okay. Once an individual strips away the external conditioning and identifies a true, authentic desire, how do they actually claim it?
That is where the mechanics come in.
Because the common rhetoric is always visualization. But I feel like that practice often devolves into an empty exercise of just playing pretend.
Oh, visualization is totally misunderstood. The fatal flaw in how it is commonly executed is that it remains a completely passive act.
Passive how?
Well, an individual imagines the reality they desire, but they perceive themselves living it from a detached, distant perspective. They sit in the audience of their mind watching themselves on a distant screen.
Oh, like controlling a digital avatar from a bird's eye view.
Exactly. And there is a profound separation between the observer and the avatar.
And I'm guessing that separation destroys the mechanism.
It completely breaks the circuit. For the mental layer to effectively direct the ethereal plane and force the physical plane to conform, the visualization must be a total first-person immersion.
First person, so you do not watch yourself.
No, you must look outward from behind your own eyes. You must mentally extend your hands and feel the tactile sensation of the environment.
You have to really feel it in your body.
You must generate the precise, undeniable emotional resonance of the completed reality within your biological form in the present moment.
So you adopt the active identity of that reality. You do not wish for it. You inhabit the I am of it.
Exactly. You embody the I am. And here is the paradigm-shifting truth behind this immersion. You are not creating anything out of a void.
Wait, really? We are not conjuring abundance or vitality from thin air.
No, not at all.
If we aren't creating it, what are we doing?
We must return to the nature of the ethereal layer. Like we discussed, every conceivable variation of reality already exists there.
Right, the infinite possibilities.
It is a vast library of simultaneous existences. When you immerse yourself completely in a specific desire through first-person sensory and emotional engagement, you are simply tuning your mental receiver to align with a frequency that is already broadcasting.
Oh, wow. So you are just merging your current localized awareness with the identity of the version of you who is already occupying that reality.
Yes, you just tune into the right station.
Okay, I have to pause the theory for a second and drag us back into the friction of human experience.
Let's do it.
So, you execute this first-person immersion. You sit in stillness, you feel the staggering joy, you touch the edges of this boundless abundance, you become the I am.
You are entirely aligned.
Yes, you are entirely aligned. And then the meditation ends.
Ah.
You open your physical eyes, the sensory immersion breaks. You look around and your immediate physical environment is just as desolate as it was before.
Of course it is.
The kinetic reality has not shifted a fraction of an inch. So how does a person navigate that crushing wave of disappointment without instantly reverting to the old fearful code?
This right here is the gauntlet. This is the ultimate test of the density delay we talked about earlier. When the sensory immersion ends and you face the unchanged physical world, you must hold the line of your new identity.
Holding the line is easy to say, but when the physical world is screaming lack at you, it feels completely impossible to ignore.
It feels impossible until you fundamentally redefine what you're actually looking at.
Okay, how should I look at it?
The external physical reality surrounding you at this exact moment is not the truth of your current identity. It is merely the solidified, dense, trailing echo of a bygone era.
Wait, an echo? Like the exhaust of a past mental engine?
Precisely. That is a perfect way to phrase it. It is the delayed, physical manifestation of thoughts, fears, and beliefs you harbored deeply in the past.
So it is just old news.
Exactly. It required a significant passage of time for the dense matter to orchestrate itself into your current barren situation. Therefore, when you look at it and allow disappointment to overtake you, you are permitting a dead echo of the past to corrupt your present mental code.
Oh, man. And if you let the echo dictate your present state, the algorithmic mirror immediately registers that disappointment.
It says yes to the lack.
And then it projects another dense echo of lack into your future. You just create a self-sustaining loop of misery.
Which is why focusing your kinetic or emotional energy on fighting the old reality, mourning the old reality, or complaining about the old reality only ensures its survival.
So what do we do instead?
All available energy must be violently redirected toward building the new mental architecture. When you face the desolate circumstance, your internal reaction must be a profound, almost clinical detachment.
Like you observe it and recognize, this is merely the dense debris of my old programming.
Yes, you realize it has absolutely no bearing on the new reality you're actively commanding into existence right now.
It is the exact equivalent of observing the light from a distant, ancient star in the night sky.
Oh, that is a fantastic analogy.
Because by the time that light crosses the cosmic expanse and hits your retina, the star that generated it might have already collapsed or changed its trajectory entirely.
You're staring at a ghost.
The current physical reality is a ghost.
It is. And to deal with ghosts, you must continuously, almost violently, return your awareness to the internal knowing.
But maintaining that unwavering conviction, refusing to succumb to the illusion of the physical ghost, that requires an extraordinary intensity of mental focus.
It does. Which introduces a concept that is endlessly weaponized in modern discourse: vibration.
Oh, vibration. We are constantly instructed to maintain a high vibration.
And how is that usually interpreted?
The colloquial understanding is this frantic, forced, boundless positivity that honestly borders on manic denial.
Right, which is a toxic distortion. Vibration is not dependent on adopting a fake persona of endless cheerfulness.
Or drinking, specific green juices.
Exactly. It is not reliant on consuming highly specific botanical extracts or adhering to rigid esoteric diets. Those behaviors might be symptomatic of a certain belief system, but they are not the raw mechanics of vibration.
So how do we define the actual physics of personal vibration, then?
Vibration is an absolute synonym for consciousness. It is entirely synonymous with the scope of your self-awareness.
Oh, interesting. Not mood, but awareness.
Right. Raising your vibration has nothing to do with forcing a smile. It means systematically widening the aperture of your awareness regarding who and what you actually are.
Okay, let's map this out using the architecture of the human mind, because I think we can dissect this into a triad of awareness, right?
Let's do it.
The foundation, the most dense state of operation, is the subconscious.
The realm of the autonomic script. When an individual operates entirely from the subconscious level, they are essentially a biological automaton.
Wow.
Existence is not something they create. It is something that violently happens to them.
In this state, the individual is entirely blind to the hidden code driving their reactions. They believe their anger, their fear, their jealousy are objective truths caused by external events.
Right. They are locked in a perpetual defensive posture. The autonomic nervous system is acting as a relentless threat detection radar, constantly flooding the biological form with stress chemistry.
Forcing them into a state of fight, flight, or paralysis.
Exactly. They possess absolutely zero control over their internal environment.
This sounds like the definition of a severely low, dense vibration.
It is. The aperture of awareness is choked down to a microscopic pinhole. They can only see the immediate, perceived threat.
But when the aperture widens, we ascend to the second level, which is the self-conscious.
The awakening of the actor.
Tell me about the actor.
In the self-conscious state, a profound realization occurs. The individual recognizes they possess directive power. They realize they are not their fleeting thoughts, in the same way they are not the physical clothes they wear.
Right.
They observe a thought, enter their mental space, and they understand they have the agency to either entertain it or dismiss it.
They realize they can grab the steering wheel.
Yes.
So if the subconscious level is a rigid script dictating every move, the self-conscious level is the actor sweating on the stage.
Sweating is the right word.
The actor is aware they are performing. They are actively trying to remember the lines, hitting their marks, and managing the props of their life. It requires immense effort, but there is agency.
The actor is awake, yes, but they are still entangled in the drama. They still believe the play is reality.
So how do we get out of the play?
To reach the highest state of vibration, the aperture must open completely to the infinite horizon. This is the superconscious.
The superconscious, the silent, detached observer.
Exactly. In the superconscious state, you are no longer the sweating actor. You are the director, sitting quietly in the back row of an empty, darkened theater.
Just watching.
You are watching the actor perform, you are watching the dramatic narrative unfold on the stage, but you never, for a single fraction of a second, forget that it is entirely a play.
You inhabit a state of absolute non-duality.
Right.
The human avatar is navigating the dense physical environment, experiencing the kinetic friction, feeling the biological emotional responses. But the true essence, the core node of consciousness, remains entirely untouched.
It observes the chaos with a profound, unshakable peace.
Therefore, elevating your vibration is a journey of expansion. Contraction states driven by profound shame, immense guilt, or terror chokes the awareness into a suffocating pinhole.
And expansion states of profound peace, genuine joy, and non-attachment opens the awareness to observe the grand, sweeping machinery of existence.
Okay, so if the goal is to permanently anchor our awareness in that superconscious observation deck, we need an operating manual.
We absolutely do.
Because we cannot just sit in the back of the theater without understanding how the stage lights work, how the trapdoors function, and how the script is written.
Luckily, we have a framework. We have a vast constellation of universal principles that explicitly detail how energetic reality is constructed.
These are the immutable mechanics of the cosmos. And when an individual internalizes these mechanics, they transition from being a victim of random kinetic collisions to an active, sovereign architect of their experience.
So let's systematically dismantle these mechanics.
I am ready. Where do we start?
The absolute bedrock, the foundation upon which every other principle rests, is the principle of mentalism.
Mentalism. What does that declare?
This principle declares, without exception, that the entirety of the universe is a mental construct. Everything that exists, from the microscopic particles to the sweeping cosmic galaxies, originated as a pure idea within the overarching universal mind.
Okay, I have to interject with the inevitable skeptical response here.
Let's hear it.
Someone is listening right now, touching the solid wood of their desk, feeling the heavy gravity anchoring them to their chair, and thinking, this desk is not a thought. It is a dense physical reality that will splinter if I smash it.
Right, it feels real, so it must be objective argument.
Exactly. How do we reconcile the physical mass with the assertion that it is merely a mental construct?
The error lies in separating the physical from the mental. The dense wood of the desk is not something other than a thought. It is simply a thought that has been subjected to extreme density.
Ah, density again.
Yes. It is the end-stage coagulation of a mental directive. Because our individual awareness is a direct extension of the universal mind, our own localized thoughts are the literal foundational building blocks of our localized experience.
So we are not tourists wandering through a pre-rendered objective universe.
No, our perception is actively rendering the environment in real time.
Wow. Which flows seamlessly into the second mechanic, the principle of correspondence. The ancient maxim, as within, so without.
The microscopic fractal flawlessly mirrors the cosmic fractal.
Meaning there is an unbroken continuity across all spectrums of density.
Exactly. The exact same mechanics that dictate the orbit of colossal planetary bodies govern the behavior of invisible atomic structures. But the most vital application of this principle for the individual is this. Your external physical environment is a flawless, uncompromising mirror of your internal mental architecture.
Oh, this principle is deeply confrontational.
It really is.
It totally removes all possibility of playing the victim, because if your internal state is a chaotic storm of unresolved resentment, chronic anxiety, and scarcity, well, the external environment is fundamentally obligated to manifest a chaotic reality.
It has no choice.
Your external relationships will fracture under the strain, your kinetic endeavors will suddenly face insurmountable blockages, and your biological form may even manifest physical deterioration. The correspondence is absolute.
It is an algorithmic certainty. The external cannot contradict the internal. However, the inverse is equally absolute.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. If you rigorously cultivate a profound internal equilibrium, if you maintain that superconscious detachment, the external chaos is forced to dissipate. The friction dissolves, and the physical environment harmonizes to match the internal peace.
And we achieve that harmonization by understanding the next mechanic, right? The principle of vibration.
Yes. We established earlier that vibration is consciousness, but this principle takes it further. It states that absolutely nothing in existence rests. Everything is in a state of continuous, ceaseless motion.
So the illusion of solidity is merely a limitation of our sensory nodes.
Exactly. That heavy desk we mentioned.
That's
It is composed of subatomic energy vibrating at an agonizingly slow frequency.
And a beam of radiant light.
That is the exact same fundamental energy, merely vibrating at a significantly elevated frequency.
And a thought, like a localized mental command.
That is energy vibrating at an extraordinarily intense, piercing frequency.
This completely demolishes the boundary between the material and the immaterial.
It does. The only difference between a fleeting sensation of profound gratitude and a heavy physical asset resting in your hand is the intensity of its frequency. They're constructed from the exact same energetic raw material.
Recognizing this unlocks a staggering magnitude of power. I mean, you no longer need to figure out how to conjure physical matter out of an empty void.
Because creation is not about building, it is about tuning.
You simply tune your internal receiver to perfectly match the frequency of the reality that already exists in the ethereal spectrum.
Precisely.
But this theory collides violently with the reality of human existence, doesn't it? Well, we do not live in isolated vacuums. We exist in a dense environment surrounded by a vast constellation of other conscious nodes. And the overwhelming majority of them are operating from their terrified subconscious.
Yes, broadcasting a massive, chaotic signal of panic and lack.
Exactly. So how does an individual tune their personal frequency when the overarching collective broadcast is totally deafening?
The influence of the collective frequency is undeniable, I will give you that. If a massive concentration of individuals is projecting an intense frequency of fear, their combined mental output will absolutely manifest a localized physical environment that reflects that terror.
They create a dense field of localized chaos.
Yes.
So how does the sovereign architect avoid being completely overwhelmed by that localized chaos?
By understanding the hierarchy of frequency, a higher, more intense frequency of pure consciousness will always possess the capacity to override a denser, lower frequency of fear.
Always. Always. The individual who has elevated their awareness to the superconscious level, who fully grasps the principle of mentalism and knows the environment is malleable, can generate an internal frequency so intense that it repels the collective chaos.
Oh, so you become a localized anchor of a completely different reality.
Exactly.
You can physically walk through an environment consumed by panic, yet remain entirely untouched by the friction because your internal receiver is locked onto a different broadcast. You render their chaos invisible in your own timeline.
You actively refuse to grant their chaotic broadcast access to your mental layer. You observe their panic, but you do not internalize it.
That is the ultimate defensive mechanism. It transitions us from feeling like helpless debris tossed in a collective storm to possessing an internal command dial.
And the mechanics of that dial lead us into the next phase of the universal architecture.
Right, beginning with the principle of polarity. This principle declares that everything in existence has a pair of opposites. However, the critical transformative insight is that these seemingly opposing forces are entirely identical in their fundamental nature. They differ only in their degree of intensity.
We need to ground this in a tangible analogy. Let's examine the spectrum of thermal energy.
Okay, good one.
We categorize sensations as heat or cold, treating them as completely separate phenomena. But there is no objective switch that turns off the cold and turns on the heat.
Right, there's only a single continuous continuum of thermal vibration.
Cold is merely the absence of a higher degree of heat. They are the exact same thing, just resting at different points on the slide.
I call it the cosmic dimmer switch. This mechanism applies universally, but its most profound impact is on our emotional states and our perception of events.
How so?
Well, experiencing profound serenity and experiencing agonizing dread are not two different types of energy. They are the exact same fundamental energy, vibrating at different degrees along a single pole of polarity.
Wait, if we extrapolate this to its logical conclusion, it means objective reality does not exist.
It is a complete illusion. The universal field simply provides raw, energetic, kinetic occurrences. Events happen. That is all.
And we are the ones who manipulate the dimmer switch.
Exactly. We assign meaning to the raw data based on where we choose to focus our awareness on the pole of polarity.
The psychological relief in this principle is immense. It means that if an individual is suffocating under the weight of an incredibly heavy emotion, if they are paralyzed by grief or terror, its direct, exact opposite already exists simultaneously on that exact same spectrum.
They are already holding the dial.
They simply need to slide their awareness along the continuum.
And the mechanism for sliding that dial is crucial. It is not achieved through brute force or toxic positivity. You do not stand in the center of an agonizing experience, force a manic smile, and scream hollow affirmations.
That is just scrubbing the mirror again.
Because screaming an affirmation while feeling agony is just broadcasting an internal code of agony dressed up in a pleasant kinetic costume. The mirror still reflects the agony.
Precisely. To utilize the principle of polarity, you simply acknowledge the current degree of the emotion. You observe the heavy dread, and then you gently, deliberately shift your internal perception slightly up the dimmer switch.
You reach for a thought that feels marginally less dense. You do not leap from terror to ecstasy. You shift by degrees, gradually elevating your frequency up the pole.
It is a gentle tilting of perspective, but as you tilt that perspective and slide up the pole, you inevitably collide with the next kinetic mechanic, the principle of rhythm.
Yes. The endless tide.
The immutable pendulum swing that is baked into the very fabric of existence. Everything flows inward and everything flows outward. There is an inescapable rhythm to the cosmos, a rhythm to biological life, a rhythm to emotional states.
It is the absolute predictability of the inhale followed by the exhale, the cyclical rotation of dormant and vibrant seasons, the expansion and contraction of massive energetic structures.
So what is the fundamental law of this rhythm?
That the measure of the swing to one extreme is always the exact measure of the swing to the opposite extreme. The universe demands absolute equilibrium.
And I imagine we cause our own suffering by resisting this.
Yes, the primary engine of human suffering is our fierce, desperate resistance to the downward swing of the pendulum. When our localized experience flows outward, when we endure a period of kinetic loss or biological decline or a phase of profound internal quiet, we panic.
We assume the outward flow is permanent. We assume the barren season will last forever.
So we exhaust our biological forms, trying to artificially force the environment into a state of perpetual bloom. We violently fight the rhythm.
We expend a staggering magnitude of energy trying to halt a cosmic tide.
But when an individual operates from the superconscious observation deck, the entire dynamic shifts. The pendulum continues to swing, but it swings beneath them.
So they no longer try to violently force the tide back in.
Right. They observe the continuous chaotic rhythm of the dense layer with an unshakable internal peace. They experience the downward swing, they feel the withdrawal of kinetic energy, and they state with total detachment, this phase is temporary and necessary.
Because they possess the absolute knowing that the upward expansive swing is guaranteed by universal law.
Exactly. They can inhabit the barren season without internalizing the barrenness.
They maintain their internal state of boundless abundance, even when the physical echo surrounding them is temporarily swinging through a cycle of extreme lack.
They survive the winter because they know they are not the weather.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
They know they are not the weather. And because they maintain that internal sovereignty, they continuously execute the next mechanic, the principle of cause and effect.
The absolute eradication of chance, luck, randomness, and arbitrary misfortune are merely terms we invent to describe cosmic mechanics we lack the awareness to perceive.
So every single physical effect in your external reality is tethered to a specific mental cause.
Every single one.
We are the ultimate unyielding cause. The physical environment is merely the delayed, trailing effect. If you demand the mirror to reflect a smiling face, you cannot stand there violently prying the glass's lips upward with your fingers.
You must initiate the smile internally. You must become the mental cause of the kinetic effect.
The internal architecture must fundamentally shift first. By immutable law, the dense external reality has absolutely no alternative but to eventually bend and conform to that shift.
But executing this shift requires a highly specific balance, leading us to the final foundational rule, the principle of gender.
And just to be absolutely clear, we are not referencing biological distinctions or societal constructs here.
No, not at all. We are analyzing the dual energetic equilibrium present in all acts of creation. Every manifestation requires the harmonization of two fundamental universal forces.
Where are they?
There is the projective analytical kinetic force, the masculine principle, and there is the receptive intuitive forming force, the feminine principle.
And creation is impossible without both operating in tandem.
Exactly. If an individual operates exclusively through the projective force, they are relentlessly pushing, calculating, analyzing, and attempting to violently bend the physical world through sheer kinetic willpower,
They are trying to cause an effect entirely within the dense layer.
which leads directly to the catastrophic burnout we analyzed earlier. The biological form shatters under the friction.
But the opposite extreme is equally paralyzing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If an individual swings entirely into the receptive force, they become completely unmoored from the physical reality. They spend their days floating in the ethereal plane, engaging in magnificent first-person immersions, feeling the soaring emotions of endless abundance.
But they entirely neglect the kinetic action required to anchor that reality in a dense environment.
This results in profound, tragic stagnation. The magnificent blueprint is perfectly drafted in the mental layer, but the kinetic structure is never constructed. The individual becomes a phantom dreaming in a void.
So how does the sovereign architect blend the two? How do they know when to be receptive and when to be projective? Specifically, how does an individual differentiate between a projective kinetic action that is inspired versus an action that is just forced, panicky labor?
That is the key difference.
Yeah.
Forced kinetic action is driven by terror of the pendulum's downward swing.
Mhm.
It feels like swimming upstream against an endless tide. The action is frantic, exhausting, and completely disconnected from joy.
The individual is taking the action solely because they are terrified of what will happen if they stop.
Right, they are scrubbing the mirror.
Yes.
Inspired kinetic action, however, is a natural, effortless extension of the receptive state. The individual intuitively conceives of the desire in the receptive silence. They build the internal conviction.
And then what happens?
When the conviction reaches a critical mass, the kinetic action required to manifest it feels entirely inevitable. The action itself becomes the reward. It does not feel like labor. It feels like the joyous expression of the new identity. They utilize the projective state to seamlessly bridge the ethereal possibility into the dense reality.
Wow. We have mapped an extraordinary expanse of the cosmic architecture today. We moved from the agonizing friction of the dense physical layer to the boundless, instantaneous possibilities of the ethereal layer.
We covered a lot of ground.
We analyzed the algorithmic, unblinking obedience of the universal mirror, and we dismantled the immutable mechanics that govern the relentless pendulum swing of our kinetic existence.
It is a complete dissolution of the victim paradigm.
And I believe this entire philosophical framework culminates in one staggering realization regarding our fundamental identity. We are aggressively conditioned to view ourselves as incredibly fragile biological anomalies.
Tiny, insignificant life forms, desperately trying to survive on the surface of a random, chaotic, and inherently hostile universe.
Right. We spend the lion's share of our existence merely buffering against the incoming damage.
But the mechanics we have unpacked reveal a truth of immense magnitude. We are not the fragile biological forms buffering against the cosmic tide.
We are the tide.
We are infinite, abundant nodes of consciousness. We are not surviving the fabric of existence. We are actively, continuously weaving it with every internal code we broadcast.
That is the ultimate apex of this exploration. The true objective of mastering the density delay, of holding the line when the kinetic environment is completely barren, of widening your awareness to the superconscious observation deck, is never actually about acquiring the physical outcome.
No, the acquisition of massive resources, the summit of kinetic achievement, the tangible prize, those are merely the dense, delayed exhaust of the true internal operation.
The ultimate manifestation is never the object. The ultimate manifestation is the version of yourself who naturally, effortlessly, and undeniably exists in that state of grace.
You are not utilizing these mechanics to manifest a kinetic thing. You are manifesting an entirely new internal identity.
And the kinetic things simply materialize in your environment as a matter of mathematical certainty, because the universal mirror has no choice but to reflect the new face.
You inhabit the true I am. And when that internal identity is anchored and entirely unshakable by the ghosts of the physical environment, the dense external world quietly and inevitably rearranges its structural particles to match your sovereign decree. The colossal friction ceases. The struggle dissolves.
As we conclude this expansive analysis, we challenge you to execute a ruthless audit of your immediate environment. Observe the structural walls around you, the kinetic circumstances defining your current phase, the immense challenges you are navigating, and the fleeting joys you are experiencing.
Every single dense circumstance you perceive in your environment today is nothing more than the delayed, solidified echo of your past mental codes, your past terrors, and your past internal identity. It is all ancient history.
If that absolute truth is internalized, if everything you interact with today is merely the exhaust of a past mental engine, then the magnitude of your power in this exact present moment is absolute. You are currently occupying the primary command node of the universal field.
Therefore, the singular inquiry you must carry forward is this. Knowing the unblinking mirror of the cosmos flawlessly and aggressively obeys your dominant internal frequency, what entirely new universe are you silently commanding into existence at this exact unrepeatable moment?